Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi light novel video. And today we are here with Oratoria Volume 15's spoiler compilation. I'm very excited to get into this. I've just had the opportunity to also read the MTL translation of the light novel, which is a part of this document. And of course, just like the Volume 20 spoiler compilation, a link to this document will be in the description down below, so you guys can check it out for yourselves and go through the entire light novel, as well as, of course, the spoiler compilation if you so wish to. And I cannot wait to get into this video, man. I am so excited to go over everything that I've read, and of course, everything that's going to be a part of the spoiler compilation. I've got it up on my phone as well so that I can quickly just check some things that obviously I know are probably going to be, skipped out on in the spoiler compilation, because they're still working on it. They're still refining everything, making sure that everything is good to go. And of course, there is also a sort of like color coding scheme going on here, as you can see at the very top. Green is basically confirmed 100%. That is exactly what happens. Blue is very likely but needs confirmation, so they've probably got it from the MTL, but they just need to clean up, like, of course, small things that may not be translated properly. Of course, there are going to be some slight discrepancies between the MTL and actual fully translated version by an individual, right? It's why I'm also going to add a bit of a disclaimer here that of course, keep in mind that the MTL version is going to be having some discrepancies compared to the yen press version we might get in about a years and a half time, of course, right? But it's good that we have it. But yeah, just keep in mind that there will be a discrepancy between this and the yen press version we'll get in the future, right? Yellow is 50-50, red is unlikely but needs confirmation, and purple is false. Now, good thing is, of course, usually I wait a couple of days to make this video, because I know that, it tends to obviously be super early, so there will be a lot of yellow, there might be a little bit of red, and a lot of blue as well, right? So I've waited for a couple of days, and for the most part, a lot of the early chapters are fully green. Some of the epilogue and not sure which chapter happens is green as well. It's just chapter 3 and 4 are fully blue. So we'll obviously get to those chapters, and I'm going to try my best to explain what happens in those chapters as well, based on what I've read in the MTL. And of course, we can talk about what might have happened, what might not have happened. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this and let's start reading through the spoilers for Oratoria Volume 15. Of course, if you guys want to enjoy this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content. We're going to be doing a lot of videos in the near future, of course, right? I am very excited to, delve into some more Danmachi content. So be sure to get subscribed, and of course, comment down below your thoughts on Oratoria Volume 15. Thank you guys also so much for watching the content over the last few weeks, months, years. It's been truly appreciated. Without further ado, let's get into the video now. So let's start off with the prologue. So the trigger of the end. Now, we kind of have gone through the prologue, obviously, beforehand, because of the preview pages and everything that came out a few weeks ago, right? But just to give a bit of a recap, of course, right? We know that Lid had informed Fels that there was a being that had somehow escaped from Gnosis into the dungeon after the first invasion into Gnosis. The Xenos can't track it down, but they know it was an individual, not a sort of a monster or anything of that sort. Fels is at a location also as well at the guild at the same time, or later on as well, in that he's looking for a profile of an individual called Levinas Darda, an elf who was a member of the Electo Familia. Now, the Electo Familia is one of the original evilest members, of course, right? And is from, obviously, like it suggests, from over 900 years ago. It is going to be very important. Keep this person in mind. Very important individual, of course, right? So now we move on to chapter 1, Gather Upon This Finger. Royman had opposed Loki Familia's expedition to the 60th floor because he wanted to wait until the elevator was constructed so as to turn the Familia's achievement into his as well. Now, this is classic Royman, of course, right? No doubt about it, of course, right? It makes sense that, Royman is going to try and benefit himself at the end of the day, even though he has his moments where he's obviously actually, smart about everything. We've seen in the past as well with the full war game situation, with even beforehand as well. He's not one to, remove himself from an opportunity. He's not one to remove himself from an opportunity. So it makes sense as to why he wanted to try and do it. At the same time, however, and I'm not giving him credit for this, this is from my side, I do think the Loki Familia probably should have waited until the elevator was constructed, in my opinion, just so that in the event they need evacuating, in the event that, they needed reinforcements to come quickly, having the elevator ready would have been so vital, in my opinion. So I do think that, again, there is a little bit of a... Obviously, from Royman's perspective and from everybody's perspective, Royman is trying to take advantage of this opportunity to make it his own achievement. But I'm saying it from my side, I do think I agree with him in the sense of it would have been better just so that it would have been, a better chance for the Loki Familia to have at the expedition because of, being able to evacuate quicker, being able to get reinforcements quicker, and so on and so forth. In my opinion, it would have made sense. Riveria is adamant in exploring and reaching the Thousand Blue Eyes Garden. This, I assume, is to do with Eyes, of course, right? We know that Eyes is the so-called daughter of the dungeon, and we know that she has some link to, of course, the Eyes Garden because, of course, her being found frozen and everything. However, for now, they only plan to reach the corrupted spirit, who they believe is either in the 60th or the 61st floor. Royman relents and lets them go, but on the condition they recruit as many factions as they can, giving them a paper which allows them to force any familiar that they want to join them. So, yeah, I agree with this. I think it makes a lot of sense because you have to remember, right? The only familiars that have reached below the 61st floor or 60th floor even, is the Zeus and Hera familiars. They got down to the 71st floor. But even still, they never really took on the corrupted spirit. The corrupted spirit could be the biggest danger of the dungeon at this moment in time because of its, the thing is, right? The spirit, right? The corrupted spirit especially is a lot more dangerous than the average monster that's probably even below the dungeon, below it in the floor level, in the sense of it could be from the 67th floor or 68th floor monster. It probably is a little less dangerous than the corrupted spirit, purely because the corrupted spirit has a lot more sense. It's a lot more sentient in that sense, right? It has a functioning brain, if you want to call it that, of course, right? In the sense of it knows what it's doing. It's able to take advantage of its powers, right? In that sense. So I do think that Royman making sure that the Loki Familia was getting as many people as possible in the expedition is super important. So I think that was a good decision by Royman, of course. Ahmed has agreed and will join them along with a team of her Familia's healers. Now, this is the one thing I feel like a lot of people may question a little bit because, of course, we know Ahmed is the strongest healer in Oratoria, right? She is the first ranking healer, basically, right? Heath comes just below her. But Ahmed is only level 2, right? We know Ahmed is only a level 2 adventurer. There's a good chance that she might have actually gone into level 3 potentially due to the events of everything that's happened. But right now we have to accept the fact that she's level 2, right? There is a lot of danger in her going all the way down there, but that's the whole point of it being a full-blown expedition. You're gonna have a full-on vanguard, rear guard, and everything in between, basically, right? Everybody's going to be supporting. Ahmed's role is to basically just be in the back line and just be protected by a lot of individuals, basically, so that she doesn't get hit. So just keep that in mind, and that, yes, she's only level 2 or 3, basically, but she is effectively there to be a healer only, and that's her role. She's not gonna be in the front. There's no point of her in being in the front. This is not like Marvel Rivals where you're gonna see the healer have to go into the front and get a couple of kills. No. Her role is to basically be in the back line no matter what, okay? Tsubaki has also been preparing since a very long time and was impatiently waiting for the Loki Familia to ask her once again to join them. She alone has also prepared multiple armors and magic swords, but there are also many more from other blacksmiths. I assume Goibinu and stuff like that would have also come into play as well, and also other Hephaestus Familia members as well. She also improved the Roland weapons and mass-produced them, as well as it is said that their total worth could allow them to buy at least 2 or 3 more bases, which is crazy to say the least. I know for a fact that even in the light novel, the machine translated light novel, they also talked about the fact that they're now Durandal as well, and they're able to obviously be unbroken as well, which is very important as well, especially the more you go down, the more power you're using, the more stress you're putting on the weapon, right? So yeah. The top executives in Loki also discuss recruiting the Hestia Familia. They recognize that Bell is pretty much the strongest level 5. They even mention Aki's name, Anakiri's name, and say that, no offense to Anakiri, but Bell is by far and away the strongest level 5 in Oratoria at the moment. But the biggest issue is his inexperience, right? He's not gone to the deep floors that much. It's only been like 1 or 2 times at most he's been in the deep floors. So it's not really advisable to bring Belle along. And they also had suggested that Bet and Lafia wouldn't also be happy about it, with Bet, of course, having that whole tuffle with Belle all those months ago, right? And remember, it's only been months, right? It's not been years or anything. It's been 8 months since, of course, the events of the inn, right? Where Bet was absolutely bad-mouthing Belle. So, of course, that wouldn't really work. And then, of course, Lafia, well, we know Lafia's problem with Belle, right? We know about Lafia's problem with Belle. They also go on to talk about this, and this is actually mentioned as well. Gareth and Leon's talk, actually, they talk about it's from the prologue, but no, it's actually in the light novel as well, in the MTL, that Leon actually asks Gareth as well to not take Belle on the expedition because he's trying to prepare him for what's above ground, you know, with the dragon situation and everything, the Dragon Valley situation. So Leon basically tells Gareth, saying, no, I have to teach him. I have to show him, you know, what's happening in the overworld, and I have to teach him Afterglow, which of course we learned about in volume 20. And this is where volume 20 and volume 15 start intersecting quite a bit from this point onwards. I'm going to be making a separate video talking about how volume 15 and volume 20 intersect like no other previous light novel. And this is what Amori meant more so than anything else about volume 15 and volume 20, is that they are very interconnected. It's not like how it used to be where things would overlap or anything. This is like the Xeno stuff, like volume 10 of Sword Oratoria plus what was happening in the Xenos arc in volumes 9 to 11 of the main series, but to another level, basically, is what I will say here, basically. Besides complications with Belle, the wide level gap also discourages them from taking every part of the Hestia Familia with them, of course, right? Of course, he also discards Finn, that is to say, discards the idea of letting the command of the Familia entire to Lily, which in hindsight, I think would have worked as well in the situation that they're going into, because then Finn would be able to take a more offensive vanguard role. And that's the same thing about Hayden as well, right? It's the same issue with Hayden right now that we see in the Freya Familia war games, is you can't be commanding and also fighting at the same time. It's a very tricky balance to make, because once you're in the fight primarily, if you're taken out of it, you're going to leave a very you know, if you're going to command the Familia, I should say, sorry, let me reiterate the statement I'm going to make. If you command the Familia and then you take yourself out of the commanding position and take yourself into the fight, your Familia becomes a bit more disorganized. And it's the same thing vice versa as well. You take yourself out of the fight and put yourself in a commanding position, you're taking away a huge factor of the fight away from the fight, if you know what I mean. So yeah, Riveria wants to take Ryu since she's level 6, but Finn also wants to take Haruhime as well. Loki doesn't like the idea of Hestia asking Hestia for help, but after a lot of complaining leaves and tells them to leave Hestia to her, with Finn and Gareth wondering if she will go to ask Hestia for help or not. They even do a bet basically on whether or not she'll actually go. Royman ordered Loki Familia to take with them at least one of the Einherjar, which is of course one of the Freya Familia members. Even with Freya telling her dependents to assist the Loki Familia, Otarl refuses to become their sword or shield, since he knows that this isn't a battle his goddess actually wants, or one to wash off mud from her. So yeah, literally, I think it was Finn went to Seer, basically, Freya as Seer, of course, right? Seer asking that, you know, we have this thing, we want to take some of your members, and, you know, Finn asks Otarl to join them, but Otarl just says, hell nah. And I want to talk about this towards the end of the video, once we wrap up everything as well, because it's going to get very important, right? Finn then requests Otarl to give, Otarl with a quest to slay Balor. So basically, they want to slay Balor, which is a monster on the 49th floor. It respawns every 9 months. And the last time they tried killing it, the Freya Familia that is, Otarl wanted to solo it. The other executive said nah, basically, and didn't want him to have all the Exilia. So all of them fought between one another, and then Freya had to call the expedition off. Balor will reappear while the Loki Familia is going through the 49th floor, either before or after. And so Finn wants to get Otarl to kill it so that they have an open path, basically, in case they need to do an emergency retreat. Like in the case they end up gravely injured or something like that. And again, I want to bring this back later on. Finn says that he could kill him. They could kill it himself. You know, him, Riveria, and Gareth, since they're now level 7s, they could kill it. But he wanted to instigate Otoril to actually take his request, because Freya told Otoril that he would reach level 8 once he defeated Balor, and this was revealed to Finn when they talked. So Otoril was like, you know, there was no need for a reward. I'll do this because you've given the opportunity of a reward, basically. So yeah, I think that was pretty interesting, and I want to mention this back again once we, you know, like I said, come back to the top again. In the cafe we share, Reveria and Hayden discuss the improbability of Loki and Freya Familia's joining forces, citing their enmity and so their rivalry, and Freya Familia's strict obedience to Freya's commands. Hayden considers the guild's belief in such a collaboration naive and predicts potential conflict between the two familias. Despite that, Hayden suggests Hoegni be a bodyguard for Reveria during the expedition, and emphasizing the importance of protecting a royal high elf. Hoegni, you know, despite being shy and everything, and especially after Reveria asked for his support, he's like, even as a dark elf, I have to, you know, I have to respect Reveria, so he has to agree with her. Hoegni wants Hayden to join him as a reassurance, but Hayden says nah, because I need to protect Freya, and also the fact that there's dragons emerging from Dragon Valley, in the sense of there's escalating threats from dragons coming up from the Dragon Valley. Hoegni accepts the role and makes a awkward double peace sign pose. Classic Hoegni, classic Hoegni. That's my Chunibuyo right there, boys. That's my Chunibuyo right there. Leon then meets also with Gareth, and this is the situation that happens that I was talking about earlier, with Leon basically saying, nah, that's not happening. Leon talked to Felds about it, and he basically says that, you know, a dragon had escaped from the Dragon Valley, and Belle and him have to go and beat it. And basically he wants Belle to learn how to use Afterglow, basically. So that is going to be something very insane. I can't wait to see Belle's status sheet in the coming light novels. We did get one in volume 20, but it was like sort of in between. I'm very curious to see, after the events of Leon and everything, how his stats are actually going to look like, of course, as well. Elfie then asks if she plans to invite Squad 7 from the school district as well to join them, but Lafia says, nah, that's not happening. And even though they had also requested to join as well, Lafia said, no chance. And then because of course of their lack of experience, and then Elfie teases Lafia for sounding like a teacher when talking about Squad 7. Lafia says that it's impossible for them to reach the 50th floor, and their inexperience would burden the commanders. She emphasizes that the expedition is not a field trip, but and they don't have the manpower to escort students. Elfie then hands Lafia a letter from Mirilia, an elf from Squad 7, stating her intent to fight against Oratoria in defiance of the guild's unreasonable demands. So this is, of course, in regards to the whole situation with the Orichalcum that we saw in Volume 20. Like I said, there is a huge intertwining of the two stories that repeatedly appears here once again. So basically, it doubles down, and then of course we get the whole Orario Piat situation as well. The school district isolates itself in the port city, and they don't want to negotiate until their demands are met, of course, with the guild. Royman is again wanting to delay the expedition, but Loki Familia says no, there's no chance. And then of course Royman's like, okay, I'm getting fully throttled from all sides. We can't do this. I can't keep you know, delaying the expedition. No chance. There's no way in hell. Then the Goibinu, at the Goibinu family headquarters, Eyes gets basically a desperate Mark II, basically, which is, of course, been heavily damaged from the events against Revis and stuff, right, in Sword Oratoria 12, and it boasts a sharper edge, basically. However, he does warn Eyes that if this trend continues, she herself might break next time, referencing her severe injuries from the fight against Revis, of course. Eyes was actually the most critically injured during the Gnosis incident, with countless broken bones and damaged organs. The backlash of her Avenger skill, which was Black Wind basically, had torn her flesh from within, leaving Amit speechless when diagnosing her. And after a long recovery at home during the faction war and school district unrest, Eyes is finally healed. So this is the reason why basically during war games as well, Eyes just could not take part in it, because she was absolutely butchered. She was barely able to fight, which makes it more impressive that she was trying to challenge the Freya Familia during, of course, those events, right? During episode 3, for example, of season 5, when they were on the boat, her and Hestia, right? Similarly, when, they found out about the entire situation towards later on as well. So it makes sense. And again, it kind of doubles down on the fact that why they probably couldn't challenge Hegni as well, Tione and Eyes, why they couldn't challenge Hegni when Freya was about to charm the entirety of Orario. Makes even more sense now then. Although she feels ready for the upcoming expedition, Loki Familia refuses to let her help with preparations, and so with nothing else to do, Eyes decides it's finally time to visit Belle again. But yeah, we've already seen this already. This is just a double down. I think it's copy pasted a bit of an error there. Chapter 2, Rabbit Man returns. That's my boy Rabbit Man. That's my goat right there. So now this chapter 2 of Sword Oratoria Volume 15 is basically similar to the chapter in Volume 15 where Eyes is training Belle. It's the same exact chapter for the most part, just some slight differences and of course a different perspective, of course, right? It even says the first day of training is the same as shown in Danmachi Volume 20 from Eyes' perspective. Lafia finds out later in the night that Eyes went to see Belle and tells her to be more aware of her position as their Familia's executive. Eyes also notices that Lafia's more developed body I just read this and it does make sense because even in the light novel when I was reading the MTL it makes sense as well. Lafia's more developed body has caused Eyes to think that Lafia is terrifying for being more mature in all aspects despite being younger. Eyes says she will train with Lafia if she doesn't report about the meeting with Belle, but Lafia won't since Bed is already her teacher. Lafia actually wanted to train with Eyes but didn't want to look willful. Some new information is also revealed during the second day of training. Eyes first met Leon 3 years ago in the deep floors, and every time Leon comes back to Orario, he goes into the dungeon to test out his abilities. And also in the past, Rivera was called by Leon as a virgin old hag, which led to her being angry and fighting him. Oh my god. I read the whole thing, and it says virgin old woman here. In the MTL it says virgin old hag, which is crazy. Leon has balls, bro. He has some eyes, balls of steel, dog. He also got beaten as well when Finn and Gareth also joined with Rivera and beating him up. Finn and Royman also meet about the expedition and the Orario Piad. Royman wants Loki Familia to stay on the surface for the Orario Piad, but Finn refuses and the expedition will proceed. Finn's requests for Ryu and Harhime are also denied by Royman since Orario wants, or I say Royman specifically wants Orario to have Ryu and Harhime on their side for the Orario Piad so that, basically they're there to help against the school district in that situation. And then Alan and Gulliver brothers won't be in the expedition because they will be in consistent conflict with Bet, Tione. And then the only ones joining from the Freya Familia are Hegni and then 3 female elves as well. The expedition party setting off is the end of second chapter. What's not mentioned here as well, and this is something that's super nice as well from the MTL, is Eyes' internal thoughts about Belle 3-timing her with Ryu and Hayden, and now technically 4-timing her with Leon as well. What's with Belle having blonde-haired teachers, man? Hayden, Leon, Ryu, and Eyes, all blonde-haired. Belle has a type, I'm telling y'all. Belle has a type for teachers, is what I'm saying. But no, there was some very cute moments with like Eyes having a chibi model in her head, just saying like no violence when she's beating up Belle. And then of course, when the lap pillow comes into play, she has like lap pillow time, knee pillow time, baby, and has a card coming up, which is amazing to see. Again, it's good to see Eyes having more emotions, and again I think this is just her natural development. Obviously in previous novels, in previous Sword Oratoria light novels, there have been moments of that as well, but it's been steadily improving and increasing, and that's the most important thing, is we get to see more of Eyes. We'll see how long that lasts, however, based on what we see at the end of this light novel, from what we've seen in the images, of course, right? Now we move into the situation of like chapter 3, which is all blue, so keep that in mind, okay? This is where things get very, very, very tricky, basically. So I want to bring up chapter 3 on my phone as well, so that I have it ready to go, basically, right? So now let's talk about chapter 3. This is where things get very interesting. So now that they're going down into the dungeon, right? They're getting down into the dungeon, they're exploring. So we obviously have a big spotlight on the second string. Raul, Cruz, Alicia, Narvi, and of course Lafia, right? They're the second string. They're all level 4, level 5, thanks to the events of the Orgeon saga stuff, right? And everything. So they are, you know, heavily in that. Now, the thing is, the moment they get into around that 60th to 61st floor, they have immediately realized that there's a big problem. There's something, it's very tricky, and something has is amiss. Something is very much amiss. And then soon, once they get below 50th floor, they start realizing something is wrong. During this time, they also talk about Lafia's status update, which I will go over in right now. So Lafia is now level 4. Of course, we know this as well, right? Strength has become 126, H 126. Endurance is now G 224. Dexterity is 207, G 207. Agility is G 224. Magic is E 448. And now she has Hunter H, Immunity I, Magic Defense I. So she's not had a bad boost, basically, right? Yes, I know compared to Belle, it's insignificant comparatively, but it's still a pretty big boost nonetheless, right? And now, this is where things get very tricky, because they actually talk about this earlier on, and Eyes was actually going to be kept out of the expedition, right? The expedition was not supposed to have Eyes at all. Eyes is being targeted by the spirit. We've known this for a very long time, thanks to the events with Revis and everything. But the corrupted spirit and Finn, Garrett, Rivera, all of them know this, is that the main target that the spirit will have is Eyes. Eyes is what the spirit wants, what she wants. And so they wanted to leave Eyes out of it, but they had to take Eyes with them, because without Eyes, especially without Tempest plus Avenger, which basically makes her a level 7, an extra level 7, they'd be in much more of a trickier position. This is where I think it's a bit of a tricky one, and I kind of agree with Finn, Finn, Gareth, and Rivera on this, is that in hindsight, of course, I would probably have said no to taking Eyes. But I think, you know, when you're in that position where you have an opportunity to take on the corrupted spirit and beat the corrupted spirit, you don't want her to be, you don't want her to be there as well, at the same time as wanting her to be there because she can take on the corrupted spirit. It's a very tricky one. I want to know what you guys would have done in Finn, Gareth, and Rivera's position. Would you have taken Eyes or not? Because I probably, at the time, I would have taken Eyes. In hindsight, probably not, though. I will say this, because I think the thing is, now the Familia's objective has not only just become to defeat the corrupted spirit, but also to protect Eyes at the same time, which is very tricky. Now, let's bring up what is exactly happening in this situation against the corrupted spirit, basically, because what's happened is that it basically has become a parasite. It's become a parasitic monster, and Narvi and Alicia are the first people to get infected by the parasites, and basically the spiders bite the person, infect them with the parasite, and then the spiders die, and then the plant girl monsters grow inside of their victim bodies and grow out of their back. They are aware of what's happening, but the parasites are able to completely control their bodies and are effectively, you know, able to maneuver them in any way, shape, or form. Unhuman-like, even, basically, is what their movements are basically like, effectively, right now. Which is insane, to say the least, of course, right? It is absolutely crazy, to say the least. Then, what happens is that they realize that there is a spirit with a charm. The spirit has also got a charm-like ability. If the immunity is less than G, and Finn realizes this because he's using Bet as a sort of like a guide, effectively, on the immunity rankings, because Finn would know, obviously, everybody's immunity ranking in his Familia. Tiona and Tione immediately go down. Bet is still up, and Finn is obviously like, okay, we gotta make sure that this is fine. Basically, this is absolutely fine in that situation. Now, what happens as well in this situation as well is that because the victim, once, you know, Narvi and Alicia have been infected, Gareth effectively goes on the offense, kills the one that has infected Narvi, and then the Loki supporters, that is to say the likes of Lafia, Cruz, Raoul, and so on and so forth, they killed the one that had infected Alicia. And then, of course, at the time, Ahmed is there healing them. The problem is, in order to heal them, they have to have their nerves destroyed and recreated, which is insane, by the way. This whole point of like reconstructing and destroying nerves is absolutely ridiculous to me. It is insane. Tiona and Tione, because of course, right, Tiona and Tione are still brand new to the dungeon and Orario, right? So their charm rating is, or their immunity to immunity ability was only rated as H. So keep that in mind as well when you're looking at Tiona and Tione in that sense as well. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So keep that in mind. But yeah. So of course, that's why the supporters are also in the backline so that they can obviously avoid that situation as well. And then this is the funniest part, of course, because Tiona and Tione are being dealt with, right? Of course, Tiona obviously is held down effectively. I think Bet effectively, gets her tendon slashed in her left leg, I think it was. It was a tendon. I don't remember which leg it was, but her tendon, a tendon was slashed in her leg. And at the same time, Tione is being controlled by Finn, and he uses, which is quite funny, he uses a Loki tactic basically, which is hilarious to say the least, because he basically tells Tione to stop struggling and that he'll get good care of her, which I found very funny in that situation. Like, it's such a serious situation, but it was such a nice addition to have in there basically. And even Finn even says that he gives Loki's sweet talking a bit too much good credit in that situation, which is hilarious to say the least. Of course, Ahmed then healed them as they lifted the charm as well. This is where I think it is in between 59th to the 60th floor. Even they're saying as well that they're not sure if it's at the 60th floor just yet, but they had entered a corridor that was covered in plant stuff on the 59th floor that was leading to the 60th floor as well. Just finished reading chapter 3. In a conversation between Uranus, Loki, and Feld, Uranus said that the corrupted spirit was most likely the great spirit they sent there, and its mindset probably got affected by the monsters in the dungeon. Which, yeah, this is where things got get very interesting, because this spirit is crazy. It is very, very crazy as well. Even Felds is also looking at the battle as well, through the Oculus, thankfully as well. I'm reading chapter 3 right now on my phone, and even Uranus and Felds, while they're talking about this whole situation as well, is that they're talking about how it compares to the Gnosis expedition and that whole situation with the artificial labyrinth and everything, right? And Felds says that the scale of this threat even exceeds that of that situation. But Uranus even adds as well on top of that, that the enemy is still holding back. He feels that the enemy is still holding back, but the Familiar Alliance still has a slight advantage. If Braver and, of course, Bavaria and Gareth hadn't leveled up, this would have been a no-fly zone immediately. This would have been just a turn around, go home. This is just not happening. This is ridiculous. It's crazy. It is unbelievable in that situation. You cannot do that at all. And then now Riveria goes on the offense basically, because the corrupted spirit has now started manipulating everything basically, right? The wall, floor, ceiling, and it was covered in plant matter to separate eyes from the rest of the Loki Familia. So now you're seeing that the spirit is ready to target eyes completely, right? Riveria is now using her fire magic to burn all the plant matter that the corrupted spirit was controlling, stopping her. And then along with that, this was during also a battle against a Venom Sky Centipede Dragon that's body was being controlled by a demi spirit, which is fucking unbelievable. Everything that can happen will happen basically, right? And it broke through the floor of the 60th floor, and this is a monster that's supposed to come from the 67th floor. Unfortunately, it is basically that equivalent of a level 7, if not a level 8, basically, in terms of its official rank. It got weakened by being wrapped up in the flames of Riveria's magic, which she stopped the corrupted spirit from separating eyes from them. And then, of course, Hegni then took the opportunity to absolutely cut the of the demi spirit's head ending the battle, and we'll see the I thought we'd see the illustration right there, but it's not there, unfortunately. But it is a very intense battle. Basically, it is a very, very intense battle against the dragon and the demi spirit. But yeah, it's crazy. This is, you know, what went from it seemed like everything was okay, it's gone from 0 to 100 real quick in the downward trajectory. It is bad. It is bad what's happening. Chapter 4, the end beyond the end of the world, or in the MTL it's called the end beyond the boundary. Now this is where things get very interesting, because now we're starting to see Eyes' past coming to negatively affect the entire Familia at this point in time, and this is where things get interesting. So before I get into this situation, right, we start with a bit of a backstory in the chapter. In the actual light novel, we start with a little bit of a backstory. We see effectively an adventure, and this is long ago. This is effectively 900 years ago. This was when the city of heroes and gods was just beginning. Orario had just begun, and they were working tirelessly to seal the great hole of the dungeon. And then, of course, you had, the playful gods who thrived on chaos. And then you started having the roots of Evilus come into play, of course, right? And this being, this individual, this adventurer had belonged to one of those in the evil camp. Now they kind of delve into a little bit more of this character, this being, the heat of the battle that was, you know, effectively giving it a lot of motivation, giving it its purpose, basically, this being its purpose. And slowly but surely we start getting a little bit of an idea then, basically. And then in a moment, in the dungeon, basically, in one of its final moments, the being's final moments, they say, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. And then a being says, all right. And that is where things get very interesting, okay? That is where things get very, very interesting. Because now they're taking on effectively a monster. They're going up against the spirit. They're going up against this being, basically. They're going up against this corrupted spirit at this point in time. So they're working, they're fighting, and then they're fighting, and then they come across the brain. It literally is a brain. They come across the brain, and then there's a single eye in the body, and it turns to Eyes. So you already know who the target is. It is Eyes entirely. I've got the notes ready here as well for chapter 4, because there's so much to talk about with chapter 4. It is insane. There's lots to talk about in chapter 4. And then effectively the brain effectively then starts connecting down towards there. It extends a little bit down, creating a beautiful manifestation of the corrupted spirit, basically. And the best way to describe it, and it's in the MTL as it is akin to a Lamia, which is, of course, you can have a look at what a Lamia will look like. Basically, the head bores 3 eyes as well, and you have 4 crimson horns. Again, you've seen the picture. I mean, I don't even need to show it to you. I mean, if you can go to the very top, I think, or no, not to the very top, you can go to the illustration. It's this. It is basically this. This is the monster that we're looking at, of course, right? At this point in time, this is what we're looking at in terms of the monster. So Eyes noticed also something else as well that others hadn't at this moment in time. The flesh trees had surrounding the brain were made from spirit heads as well, melded together into humanoid-faced trees. They were not unlike the spirit altars she had seen in the battle against the artificial dungeon Gnosis, yet even more grotesque. The corrupted spirit had consumed countless spirits to create this horrific tableau. That is very, very integral. So this corrupted spirit is basically a manifestation of many spirits, basically. And now the spirit starts talking about Aria. And again, this is a point I want to talk about in a moment, basically. I want to talk about this theory at the end of this video, to be quite honest. She keeps on saying that I've always wanted to see you, Aria. I've wanted to see you. And then, Eyes basically says, I'm not Aria. No, the corrupted spirit says, "You are heaven's sister, my little sister, the sword of the tempest, my final feast. Come, let us become one." I want to talk about eyes and Arya later on, because that is a very interesting theory that I remembered a lot of people mentioning like ages and ages ago. This was during like 2017, 2018 even, I would say. But then it just died out because we were like, no, surely that's not possible. And a lot of people said that that's unlikely to happen. But I think it's time we bring back that theory up in just a moment. Tiona, Bet are just like, we gotta kill her now. We gotta kill her. Finn's also like, yeah, it's time. It's time, we gotta go. We gotta get ready. Attack alongside Lafia's second barrage. Protect eyes at all costs. At this point now, it's all about protecting eyes. And that's about it. And then the corrupted spirit calls out for Revis. And then the adventurers realize it's not Revis who's come out. It's Aura. Aura Moriel. One of the ex-members of the Dionysus Familia. A member of effectively the Penia Familia technically. And the vice captain of the Dionysus Familia, basically. A member who died during Gnosis, during the execution, the genocide of that familia, effectively. Everybody is shocked. Even I was like, deadass? They've actually managed to... She's alive? And she is the one who escaped from Gnosis. And then they realize that she has a magic stone in her chest as well. So she has become a creature. Lafia gets frustrated, very angry. Like, she's also like, you know, fully red hot. It's red hot anger. But she's also been super sad as well. And at the same time, she's, you know, very mixed emotions. Very, very mixed emotions. Ice is also questioning like, are you actually Revis? I defeated the creature. And Revis at this point, we'll call her Revis or Aura Revis, says that she is Revis, but not the Revis that Eyes knows. Because there's been 7 Revises in total in the past. She's not only faced the likes of Eyes and the Loki Familia and stuff, she's even faced the likes of the Zeus and Hera Familias as well, which is insane. She's been along for so long, and this confirms that Revis is indeed the original Revis. We finally realize who she is. She is Levinas Darda, the elf who was a member of the Electo Familia. I was gonna say Loki Familia there. She is Levinas Darda, and it makes sense because Levinas, I think when she was dying, when she must have had her name, she must have said Levi or something like that, and it became that basically as well. And she starts talking about how she came to be, how she got this power, how she was able to be this strong, who she faced off against, consistently clashing with the likes of those Zeus and Hera Familias, you know, those who sung the Song of Heroes and everything. And she even says that that was so long ago, nearly 900 years in the past. I, who died deep within the labyrinth, who was noticed by that spirit, who was far weaker than it is now. So the spirit has been around for that long. The spirit has been around for 900 years, but it's just been growing stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's where the dungeon's evolution comes into play, I suppose, as well as the general intake of the spirit as well. And yeah, that's crazy. It is crazy that this entire situation was having. Riveria even goes on to say soul division. It's insane. Like it's defying the gods basically, right? It's effectively defying the gods. Aura, or Revis the 7th now, as she says the visions seen by the previous Revis were reflected in me as I lay cradled in the womb of this meat prison, connected through the spirit. But that was mere observation, not experience. Even if I knew the information from my perspective now, none of you mean anything to me now. And she doesn't even know what happened, how the previous Revis even met the Loki Familia, and the fact that even she had a very, very long life as well, which is crazy to say the least. But Revis goes on to say that, you know, in response to Ai's question about like why is she still, you know, being controlled by the spirit, and why are you following the spirit? She says that she cannot escape the spirit, but it's more like also a parent and child relationship. You know, take those two feelings of parent and child, combine them, and then divide by 2. Perhaps that's the kind of emotion I harbor. There is a sense of attachment there, which is very interesting as well in that sense. But yeah, and then of course they effectively go on an offense. Basically now they go on an all-out offense, you know, with Oratoria, with Revis, right? She's absolutely going from it. She even talks about a magic that she had when she was alive, but the previous Revis never demonstrated it because she couldn't use it. The vessel and soul were too far apart. The thing is, right, with Revis now being a thing, right, the way she's able to basically take control of, you know, Aura Moriel. I remember a while back, this was a long time ago, Mori, I remember, mentioned he wanted Elise to be Revis as well, but he canned that idea. In hindsight, that could have easily been a thing. The 6th Revis could have indeed been Elise, which would have been insane. I must admit, that would have been something else. But I think in hindsight, of course, right, you would have had to do this plotline of the discovery and everything a lot earlier and had Ryu involved immediately there as well, which would have been a bit of a struggle in that situation. And then now it's full on offense. Both of them, both sides are fighting against one another. The news body, and we'll read this now. The news body belongs to Aura Moriel. Unlike the redhead Revis, Aura Revis has access to original Revis's magic. This magic can synchronize Revis's mind with the target, showing them her last moment. It will only trigger once Revis is dead. Wow, okay. That is crazy. And now, this is, I guess, where Eyes realizes it, because Eyes must have been the target, of course, right, of Revis's Revis's magic, not might, was a target of Revis's magic. And then Eyes went berserk because she realized what she was witnessing. Aura Moriel, Revis's original death, her horrifying death, basically. That is crazy, to say the least, man. That is crazy. That is absolutely nuts. Okay, so the only Revi loved by the carpet spirit chose to love it in return. Then she met the girl Arya, a swordswoman seeking battles and strength much like her former self. So close yet surrounded by warmth Revi could never touch. The golden radiance of this girl was painfully distinct. And that is where things go crazy, because obviously Revis is now dead. Like, Revis comes back and she is immediately dead, effectively. But in the same time, Eyes goes berserk, basically. And then the Loki Familia trio tried to calm her down, but they were stopped by a sudden wall of ice. And during the sudden stop of a wall of ice, Riveria tries to go and catch, you know, the Eyes holding out her hand. Finn, Gareth are all surging forward, right? With the pillar of ice coming up, Riveria's hand gets hit immediately. It gets repelled and then it sprays blood. Now, the thing is, we don't know if her arm is cut off at this point. It doesn't really explain to us whether her arm is actually cut off or not, Riveria's arm, or if it's just a big fracture because, you know, you're hitting a block of ice, or is it like this way? You know, we don't know if it's going from up to top, just cutting her hand off, or it has just come up like this and, you know, Riveria's gone like this basically, or like this, breaking her hand, which we don't know yet in that situation. If it's just like this and, you know, Riveria's arm is broken, basically, Ahmed will be able to heal it. But if it's a full-on like cut and the arm is gone, that's a discussion we'll have to have for another time. Now, of course, we know Riveria has been trying to find Talia's ice garden, of course, right? And it's not only because of eyes that she's looking for, it's also because of Seldia. Now, we know Seldia, of course, if you guys don't know who Seldia is the spirit, is the saint of the beginning. And also, if you were wondering who Seldia also is, if I'm not mistaken, Seldia is Albert Waldstein's partner, in the sense of one of his party members. Now, I know I know this is going to be a bit confusing, but this is everything coming up to fruition, you know. This is all the story linking together. This is what we've been waiting for a long time, is to find out why eyes had come to be. And it seems like this glacier territory was specifically created to protect Eyes Wallenstein. Because Eyes had screamed when she had gone berserk, the area was protecting Eyes, basically. But unfortunately, in trying to protect Eyes, which she got encompassed in the ice effectively, the spirit was then able to swallow Eyes. And now, the spirit became even more powerful. Multiple Eyes appeared on the trees. Tiona was then attacked by one of the clone of Eyes, and her hand was maybe severed, and we'll talk about this in just a second. Her head was shot by a wind bullet, and even her on the side of her body, a hole was formed. Also, Tione got very enraged and got overwhelmed as well, simultaneously as well. This got very dangerous very quickly. You have to remember that this is all multiple Eyes with the ability to use Tempest. And this was a bloodbath from this point onwards. This was a bloodbath. Now, of course, as the comment says here, the arm thing is complicated. The phrasing is not very clear. It could be interpreted as her hand being injured but still attached. Only confirmed injuries are a hole on her side and the head injury. We don't know if Tiona is dead. Okay, a lot of people are probably already calling Tiona dead. We don't know that. We still don't know that. That is something that we'll have to wait and see and confirm later on. The corrupted spirit then even created more clones of Eyes. Finn made an assessment that if this reached the surface, it won't even take the OEBD to end the world. The spirit will be the first to do it. Finn with his level 7 ability, and this is why somebody, I remember before volume 15 officially launched everywhere, and you know, it was still like people were getting their first copies and stuff. Somebody said on Twitter that you have to read Knights of Fianna, and this is probably why, because he recreated Tir na Nog, which is insane. I mean, if you go back to watch Danmuo Knights of Fianna, right, this attack is insane. And especially now with Finn, that's level 7 and everything, it's gotta be an insane ability, man. The spear was so powerful that many barriers conjured by the corrupted spirit and Isis clone's wind could only slightly alter its trajectory. The corrupt spirit lost her arm and a part of her brain-like main body were blown away. Finn's spear hit the ground, causing the 60th floor to start collapsing. Raoul then had to make the immediate decision to run, basically. And the thing is, Raoul had to run with Cruz, Alicia, Lafia, and a couple of the others as well. Raoul realized that he can't be a hero. This is not the time to be a hero. It's not time to be time to emulate heroism. It's time to be a coward and run. Because if they don't run, they won't be able to save the others. They need somebody stronger to save the others. And so everybody runs. They go on to the 58th floor. They face more monsters. And then we get the Xenoses involved as well. So the Xenoses come to help as well. We have Ray. We have Astreus as well as there. So we're going to see the Xenoses being a part of the story as well, which is going to be insane. And then they keep going down, 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 down. And then they get to the 50th floor. And then from there, it becomes trickier because then they start going down from floors. Because remember, it's the 50th floor. It's not like they're on the 20th floor or the 15th floor. No. It's the 50th floor. They have to go down to the 40th floor. They lose. Some of the Einherjar familiars gave their lives as well on the 40th floor. They keep going. They keep going. They lose more familiar members. They go down. Meluna Thea, one of the elves of the Yenite Force, and of course part of the Freya Familia, she also loses her life. The last of the Einherjar falls, and they keep going down. They keep going down. And then, yeah, they keep going down. Lafia even mentions it's just like the nightmare of the 27th floor, 18th, 13th, 10th, 7th floor. And then they come up to the surface. And the casualties. Let's talk about the casualties. 8 from the Loki Familia. 5 from the Hephaestus Familia. 1 from the Diansect Familia. 3 from the Freya Familia. From other familiars, 4 familiar members. It's hefty. It's a hefty one, man. And you have to remember that down below on the 60th floor, they're still fighting. Or the 59th floor now, because the well, it'll be actually the 61st floor, I should say. Sorry, not 59th floor. Because the floor is collapsed, they now go down to the 61st floor. So it's even worse. And then we obviously see exactly what happened effectively in Volume 20's epilogue, Danmachi Volume 20's epilogue, but from the other perspective. It is from Lefia's perspective. And from now, at this point, this is where things get very interesting. Loki also realized what's happened. She's right there. She's heading towards one person. She knelt before Raoul and realized the situation. And then she goes to the guild. And then they go to the guild. And then they say the expedition failed. Loki Familia failed. Weren't Hephaestus and Dissect members with them too? Did you all just abandon everyone and flee back on your own? Everybody was super mad in the basement floor. And then the expedition failed. The Familia Alliance was annihilated on the 60th floor. And he calls for reinforcements. And then Lefia realizes and looks in one direction and sees effectively the one option, the only option. We all know this was happening. We all know this was coming. A single boy stood before. And I want to read this word by word because this was, I think, so... It's one of those things that you don't think it's inspiring, especially because it's from Lefia's perspective as well. Remember that, right? But it just shows how great Belle is in terms of inspiring hope and confidence, even as an underdog character, right? And this is why I love Belle and I love Danmachi, in all honesty. Let's talk about her. Let's read through this. Lefia refused to accept just one thing. She refused to accept despair. Even as the other members slumped, heads bowed in shame, their gazes downcast on the floor, Lefia did not lower her face, because within her there was anger. A searing heart roared at her core, burning with such intensity that it seemed capable of melting the blood flowing from her wounds. This fire in her heart became the spark that kept her from succumbing to despair. That anger, infuriatingly so, manifested vividly in her vision. A single boy stood before her, his white hair frozen in time as he stared at them in stunned silence, his crimson eyes fixed on her. The only adventurer who had ever received the guidance of their idols, a new hero nearing the stature of the great ones they revered, stood here. It's not over, not yet. Lefia knew the name of this anger. The name of this anger was hope. Crimson and sapphire eyes met, their gazes intertwining. With a spark of hope reflected in her eyes, refusing to kneel, she clenched her fist, vowing unyielding determination. And so it is declared. The great blaze of white light and the fairies' roar will shatter ruin and launch a counter-attack. Wow. Nah, man, that is so gas, man. That is so gas. Now, these things are also a thing. Of course, this happens actually in chapter 3, when Leon is talking, or chapter 2, sorry, when Leon is talking about this. Beth's village has been, it's revealed that Beth's village was destroyed by a dragon that was actually from Dragon's Valley when the OABD snored once as well. So this was something that we kind of knew about this part. The dragon was what destroyed Beth's village. We didn't know it was from Dragon Valley, so it confirms that as well. But yeah, no, this light novel was insane. I want to bring up the illustration of Lefia having Belle in her sights. This was it, man. This was it. This is it. I want to kind of delve into this a little bit more in a separate video in terms of the theories and stuff a little bit more. But I want to give some mentions here as well, right? And I want to talk about Riveria's... not Riveria, sorry, eyes here specifically. I want to talk a little bit about eyes here with the whole Arya thing and everything, right? I was thinking about it, and especially now that we can see that Eyes has been made into clones. She's been eaten by the spirit or absorbed by a spirit who has been consuming spirits. We know that Revis has been able to make 6-7 souls, right? What if, and this is a big what if, but what if Arya made a clone using some influence from Albert, and that is what we have with Eyes? This is a theory I remember from ages ago. A lot of people touted this theory of like Eyes being a clone of Arya. It kind of died down for a while. I never saw it again, to be quite honest, and even I forgot about it. But the more I'm thinking about it, it all adds up to why Eyes is now, you know, connecting with the spirit and everything, and why she was being called Arya by the spirits and stuff. And also, not only that as well, it gives answer to why, you know, what she is, how she has come to be. Basically, it would give us an answer to that. Now, of course, it's not confirmed or anything, but yeah, I'm also very excited about the next light novel as well, because this is now getting dangerous. This was very action packed. It's a lot of action, obviously mixed in with a lot of lore as well, but it's very action packed. It is like a full blown, it's basically Sword Oratoria 11, where everything just goes to shit basically, but on another scale, effectively, because that shit is still continuing down in the dungeon, right? With everybody still fighting. We can see the strength of Finn and stuff as well. I blame Finn, Riveria for this whole situation, by the way. I really do, man. Riveria with her obsession of finding the garden and getting down there, and Finn's rejection of delaying the expedition. This is where I say I agree with Royman in that they probably could have waited for the this, because look, while they were coming up, and this is, I like Amori for pointing this out, while they were even coming out of the dungeon, they lost people. Raul lost members of the Familia as they were coming up. And as they're going to go down, it's going to be even trickier as well to go down, because you're still going to face monsters. You're still going to face mobs. It's going to be very interesting. Now, I also will say this as well, is that in the next chapter, in the next volume, I should say, I do think we're going to see Otarl and Hayden and all getting involved, even Leon as well. I think we're going to see a level 8 Otarl in the next chapter. We're going to see a Leon that's ready to go up as well into the dungeon. We know that he goes into the dungeon regularly. It's why we saw them mentioning it as well, that he goes into the dungeon at least once every time he comes to Aurario. I think that's going to happen again as well, in my opinion. And also, we're seeing the Xenos is also partake in the fight, helping out as well. Because, yeah, it's going to be a bloodbath. It is going to be a bloodbath. I do think we're going to lose somebody in the next volume, 100%. I don't know who. I think Tiona at this moment in time is looking like a big red flag for me in terms of who's going to die. Do I think one of the big level 7s is going to die? Gareth, Riveria, or Finn? I don't know. I think Gareth is a good option. I think is in terms of like who's likely to die. He's not been mentioned at all towards the end, whereas Riveria and Finn, we know their status in some way, shape, or form. Gareth wasn't mentioned at all towards the end of the MTL. But yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. It's gonna be very, very interesting. I like this, man. It's so gas, man. It's so exciting to see what's gonna happen. I love the fact that now we know Revis's origin as well. We know that she's an elf from 900 years ago. It goes to show how this has just been a long time coming. This entire situation is, like I said, I think this is, while the gods and everything are only 1,000 years old in that sense, you know, and everything, you know, more recently has been connected to what's the present, right? We're getting into a period now in Danmachi where we're going to be linking a lot to the events that happened even before the Age of Gods, you know, with Albert, Seldia, with Argonaut, with Finn and Dim and all that sort of stuff. It's going to be very interesting. It is going to be very, very interesting, to say the least, right? But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, of course, right? Again, I will be leaving a link to this down below in the description. You guys can read it for yourselves. You can also have a look at the MTL translation. I am very much looking forward to seeing what happens. This was a 1 hour long spoiler compilation video. A lot to digest, but man, it's so good. It is so good. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.